Now, with the Fantastic Four First Steps box office metrics now sitting at $471 million worldwide, those are indeed the global box office metrics. It barely budged this past weekend, and we already know that those out there, like Disney and Marvel Studios, they are already viewing this as a box office financial failure. But at the same exact time, they are going into damage control mode. They're trying to prop this movie up as if it's a huge success and that there's nothing wrong with it financially speaking. And that all is due in part to the fact that they are trying to create momentum ahead of Spider-Man Brand New Day and Avengers Doomsday, both of which are actually aimed to release by May and December of 2026. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, as for Avengers Doomsday, we already know that Disney CEO Bob Iger made things worse for that film after really going into the subject of DEI and how that is going to be a major factor in the priority for Avengers Doomsday. But one thing about Pedro Pascal is that he's seemingly going down the same exact route when it comes to promoting Avengers Doomsday in the midst of course, promoting Fantastic Four, and after he wrapped filming as Mr. Fantastic for, of course, Doomsday. Let's get into this. Now, one thing about all of this is that, yes, we do know that this movie is a very, very expensive film. Alright, if you want to know exactly how expensive it really is, I'm sure that you all know. Just remember how much Robert Downey Jr. is getting paid to play Dr. Doom in this movie, alright? So that's one thing to take note of there. However, to top things all off, with Pedro Pascal continuing to make political comments during the tail end of the Fantastic Four's run in the theaters, after also being labeled as a box office disaster for Disney and Marvel, with Avengers Doomsday now looming for December of 2026 and Pedro wrapped filming for that movie, he recently made things even worse for the film over a year from its release date, where he delivered the following. I think what's so great to be a part of such a large cast in Doomsday and getting the chance to also work with Robert Downey Jr. is that we are working with such a diverse cast that comes from all different ethnicities, and we are representing those that come from different genders also in this massive film. I think coming from where I stand as a male feminist and one who supports trans rights and LGBTQ rights, it was a powerful and brave move by Mr. Iger and Kevin Feige to really honor that in this film. And we have many surprise characters in this thing. Characters that I think are obviously going to stir up all kinds of emotions. But when you are working on something like Doomsday, you know that this is probably your one shot to really make something like this as inclusive as it can be for an Avengers film. And look, I love all the films, but I think that we missed the mark on really representing everybody in the previous Avengers movies. And I'm glad to say that we did just that in this one. We are a divided nation right now, a divided country. And on one angle of this country, you have those that call supporting LGBTQ rights and DEI as a form of an agenda or embracing a culture war. It's pure nonsense and it's fictional, and it's something that can be very challenging as an actor to face. You really have to have a thick skin in this business. And look, as one who has dealt with anxiety, tremendous anxiety, I think I have learned how to deal with toxic people like that over the years. Those very same people that are all for abolishing DEI, these Marvel fans that can be very toxic, need to realize that DEI is something that creates fairness and balance in this industry. It really does. And as for Doomsday, if you don't like DEI, you are going to have people calling this woke or whatever. It's all just pure fiction coming from that one side of the country. Fandoms like Marvel can be very toxic. It's why I stand by my opinion that fandom culture is very toxic in nature, because you have these ultra self-absorbed fans that believe everything has to be done their way or the highway. Now guys, let me say one thing about Pedro. Now, this is the last thing you would want to say ahead of not just Avengers Doomsday, but remember that he's actually a part of The Mandalorian and Grogu as Din Djarin in May of 2026. So this guy's got two big movies, or what could very well possibly be two very big movies in 2026. We don't really know how The Mandalorian and Grogu is going to perform, especially after The Mandalorian Season 3 was a complete ratings disaster. We all know that. But look, again, we already know that Pedro is making things way worse than it needs to be over a year from Avengers Doomsday dropping in theaters in December of next year. Now look, we already know that this movie was delayed, by multiple months, alright? It was originally supposed to come out when Spider-Man was going to come out in May of 2026. That's why, of course, they moved it over to December. There were multiple reasons why they did that. It was all a strategic plan, as well as other technical reasons behind that. We'll talk more about that down the road. But don't be too surprised if they delay it by a couple of months again for Avengers Doomsday. Don't be too shocked. That does happen where maybe it comes out in early 2027. I wouldn't be too surprised about that. However, he continues, and that can be very difficult to deal with when you are trying to create a diverse film. Inclusion is our #1 priority for this film. If you know it is, of course, it is something for me. For me, it's very important as well for Bob and Kevin and everyone else working on this thing. It was the chance of a lifetime to work on something so massive and something that will certainly go down as the biggest Marvel film yet. I firmly believe that this will succeed way past Avengers Endgame based on the characters that we display in this thing. But if you don't like my politics, that's on you. I think the audience needs to spend less time understanding why actors like myself believe in their own politics. So again, it's not so much that the people are obsessing over why Pedro believes in his politics. It's the fact that he is so vocal about his politics, so vocal about the Disney message, so vocal about the Disney agenda, and at the same exact time, calling DEI not an agenda is really what mind boggles a lot of people out there, right? Pedro does this, Kevin Feige does this, Bob Iger does the same exact thing. The trio of those representing Disney and Marvel, they continue to do these things, basically. Now, look, we know that Avengers Doomsday, it has already a lot of mixed reactions based on the casting. We know that there are a lot of people that love the idea of Downey Jr. playing Dr. Doom. There are also a lot of people like myself that view it as a very desperate move to use Robert Downey Jr.'s face as a selling point. That's really ultimately what I believe is going on here. They could have gotten anybody, like an original cast, like Cillian Murphy, or anybody out there that could have took the mantle, alright, to play Dr. Doom, and to really do something very original. And I think at the same exact time, when you're looking at Robert Downey Jr. coming back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, now playing Dr. Doom, taking, of course, on that character, taking this villain into play here, and how he's going to play this villain for a very long while, if it's going to succeed, for sure. But interestingly enough, guys, the fact that you have Pedro and Bob Iger and Kevin Feige really, mixing Avengers Doomsday as a subject with how DEI is not going to go away, how it is a priority, how it's going to be the main centerpiece of this story, I don't know what to say anymore. I really don't. It seems like Disney doesn't really learn from their mistakes. You may have had some movies here and there that dialed it down a bit, but as I discussed this earlier, that is a part of their overall strategy, to kind of lure people in, to create some success points to fund their agenda-driven projects. So we'll have to wait and see over time. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.